It wasn't the fence that crossed the line, it was Karen. By the time the county inspector announced criminal charges, the whole neighborhood knew the truth. Our HOA president had forged government maps, and my backyard fence was the evidence that brought her down. It all started on a quiet morning. I was standing by the kitchen window, coffee in hand, watching sunlight hit the cedar fence I built 3 years ago. My wife Rebecca was still upstairs asleep, 6 months pregnant and exhausted most mornings. Then I saw her. Karen Whitmore, our new HOA president, marching across my lawn like she owned it, clipboard in hand, camera already recording. "Your fence crosses 14 inches into my property," she said, waving some official-looking documents. "You have until Monday to remove it, or you'll face $500 in daily fines." I actually laughed, thinking it was a mistake. That fence had been inspected, permitted, and approved years ago. But Karen didn't flinch. She claimed her husband, a county planner, had connections who found discrepancies in my deed. She even pulled out her phone mid-conversation and said loud enough for me to hear Robert, "Yes, it's the Morgan property. I'm standing right on it now." That wasn't a confrontation, it was an ambush. By the time she left, she'd announced an emergency HOA meeting for that same night and posted about my illegal fence on the community page. Rebecca came to the door just in time to hear Karen say, "Such a shame your pregnant wife has to deal with this stress." She said it with that fake pity that's sharper than any insult. That night, I sat through a board meeting where Karen presented photos, charts, and county bylaws like she was prosecuting a crime. She used words like encroachment and community precedent. The other board members just nodded along. I tried to explain that the fence was built legally, permits survey everything, but she'd already poisoned the room. They gave me 30 days to prove compliance or start tearing it down. When I got home, there was a line of orange spray paint cutting across our backyard right through Rebecca's vegetable garden. A stake beside it read, "Proposed new fence line. Compliance deadline 5 days." And at the bottom, Karen's initials, KWWW. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking maybe I was wrong. Maybe the survey was old. Maybe we'd made some mistake buying this house. Rebecca begged me to just move the fence and the stress protect the baby. And for a second, I almost gave in. But something about the way Karen smirked that morning stuck with me. It wasn't about 14 inches. It was about control. So I called my old college friend Jake, who's a property lawyer. He said, "First rule, the burden of proof's on the accuser. Don't move an inch. Get your own survey fast." He gave me a contact, Michael Thompson, son of the original surveyor from the 80s who'd mapped our whole subdivision. Michael showed up the next morning with equipment that looked straight out of NASA. GPS units, ground radar, metal detectors, the works. He found the original survey pins right where they should have been buried in concrete. According to his data, my fence wasn't crossing into anyone's property. It was 2.8 feet inside my own line. But before he could finish, guess who showed up? Karen with her own surveyor. A guy named Tom Bradley from the same county office where her husband worked. She stood there filming as he waved around a clipboard and said, "These pins are replacements. The metal composition's wrong for 1984. It was nonsense, but they said it with confidence." That's the dangerous part. Confidence sounds like truth if you repeat it enough. That night, Karen came to my door with a manila envelope. Inside was a pristine, county-sealed plat map dated 1987, showing a subdivision revision. According to it, my property line had been redrawn years ago exactly how she'd claimed. It looked official, signatures, stamps, everything. "Robert found it in the county vault," she said sweetly. I really hoped it wouldn't come to this. I almost broke then. I sat at the kitchen table staring at that map, wondering if we'd been living on someone else's land this whole time. Rebecca cried quietly upstairs. I felt useless, like I couldn't protect my own family from a woman with a clipboard. But Jake called back the next morning with a spark of hope. "If that map's real, it'll be in county records. File a FOIA request. If it's not, you'll know." I paid the expedited fee and waited. Meanwhile, Michael started digging through his archives. He found photos from 1984 showing the same concrete markers still sitting exactly where they are today, no revisions ever recorded. Then came the bombshell. A records clerk named Janet showed me the county access logs. Karen's husband had been pulling my property files 8 times over the past 4 months. This wasn't a spontaneous dispute. It was premeditated. They'd been planning this attack for months. By the time our second HOA meeting rolled around, I wasn't angry anymore. I was ready. Karen hosted it at her house this time, complete with refreshments and a PowerPoint presentation about preserving community integrity. She treated that forged map like holy scripture. I could see the board wavering, confused by the jargon and legalese. Then the county inspector, James Murphy, showed up for an official evaluation. I didn't call him. He'd been sent automatically after Karen's complaint escalated to the county level. That's how far she'd pushed it. Murphy spent hours checking both surveys, photographing every marker. Karen hovered behind him with her binder of documents, dropping phrases like utility easement and revised plat amendments. But when Murphy asked how she obtained the 1987 records, her confidence cracked for the first time. "My husband retrieved them from the vault," she said. "They're not digital." Murphy just nodded slowly and said, "That's unusual." That night, Michael called with the truth that shattered everything. He'd found evidence that the 1987 map was a forgery. The signature belonged to a county clerk who hadn't even worked there until 1989. Karen's husband had copied real template stamps and seal placements to create a perfect fake. The next morning, Murphy called me. "We're holding a formal hearing tomorrow. Bring all documentation. Both sides will be heard." I barely slept. Rebecca tried to calm me, but her blood pressure had spiked from all the stress. "If this doesn't end tomorrow," she said, "I'm moving out until the baby's born." I didn't blame her. When I walked into the community center, the place was packed. Neighbors, reporters, HOA members, everyone. Karen arrived with her husband Tom Bradley and even a lawyer. She smiled like she was walking into an awards show. Murphy started the hearing with a warning. "There have been questions about the authenticity of certain documents. Today, we'll settle that." Karen went first, talking about community standards and protecting home values. She gestured dramatically toward her map, her voice calm and measured. She was good, I'll give her that. Even I started doubting myself again. Until Murphy asked Mrs. Whitmore, "This revision, can you provide the official filing number?" She froze. "The record was retrieved manually," she stammered. Then it was my turn. I called Michael and Tom Harrison, the retired county clerk who'd worked on the original development. Tom walked slowly to the front, opened his worn leather notebook, and said, "I supervised this subdivision in 1984. There was never a 1987 revision. I would know I signed every change that decade." You could hear a pin drop. Michael followed with data and photos, GPS coordinates matching those original concrete markers, proving my fence was exactly where it should be. Then I laid out the final piece, Janet's log showing Robert Whitmore's repeated file access and Michael's evidence that the 1987 clerk signature was from 2 years later. Karen's lawyer whispered something to her, but her composure was gone. Her eyes darted, her hands trembled. Still, she tried to speak. "This is a coordinated attack on my position as HOA president," she said. "I was only trying to protect this community." That's when Mrs. Peterson, an elderly widow in the back, stood up. "Protect us," she shouted. "You made me tear down my late husband's memorial shed, said it violated a setback that didn't exist." Her voice cracked with anger. "You cost me $8,000, Karen." Then the Johnsons spoke up. They'd spent thousands moving a driveway after one of Karen's complaints. One by one, neighbors began to rise, each telling how Karen had used fake documents, fake authority to bully them into compliance. Murphy listened silently, then finally said, "Based on this evidence, I find no property violations by Mr. Morgan. Furthermore, I'm referring this case for criminal investigation document forgery, abuse of position, and conspiracy." Karen didn't move. She sat perfectly still as the room erupted. Gasps, whispers, relief. Her husband slipped out a side door, and just like that, the power she'd built on fear and forged paperwork collapsed in front of everyone. I didn't celebrate. I just stood there exhausted, watching her world fall apart. Months of stress, humiliation, doubt, all of it draining out in silence. When I walked home that evening, I passed my cedar fence, still straight, still standing exactly where it belonged. Sometimes I think about how close I came to giving in, how easy it would have been to move that fence and let her win. But the truth doesn't need permission. It just needs someone stubborn enough to stand behind it. Because in the end, Karen didn't lose to me, she lost to evidence. Lesson: real authority isn't loud, it's proven.